This is the Islands Village townhomes. Oh, townhomes.
Nice.
Each one has its one-car garage, unless it's super deep and you can slide two cars. Oh!
Oh, wow.
This is the one we couldn't get to from over there. Huh!
Weird.
Because that was the gate that was closed.
Yep.
So are these the townhomes, but those are something different? These are apartments. Huh. Pebble Point Apartments.